Hello everybody, my name is Nicola and I'm going to tell you a story about coasts and waters. And you can't have a tale of the sea without a tale of pirates. This story was written by the Edinburgh-born author Robert Louis Stevenson, who was a member of the Lighthouse Stevenson family. It is, of course, Treasure Island. And it begins, as all good stories do, with a once upon a time, long, long ago, in the age of tall ships and pirates, there was an inn, the Admiral Benbow. And the Admiral Benbow was run by Jim Hawkins and his widowed mother. And Jim Hawkins was a young lad who dreamed of adventure. And one day, a mysterious stranger arrived at the inn, looking for a room. He had his hair in a ponytail. He had a sabre cut on his cheek, a ring in his ear, and tattoos on his arms. And he carried with him a large treasure chest. His name was Billy Bones. But he gave Jim Hawkins a gold coin if he would be on the lookout for a one-legged man. Billy Bones would drink rum, and he'd get drunk, and he'd sing. 15 men on a dead man's chest, yo-ho-ho, and a bottle of rum. Well, weeks and weeks went past, and there was no sign of the one-legged man. But one day, a blind old beggar man by the name of Pew came visiting Billy Bones. He gave him a crumpled piece of paper and told him that the pirates would be at the inn at 6 o'clock that evening. Terrified, Billy Bones unwrapped the piece of paper. It was the black spot, the pirate symbol of death. He gasped and he dropped down dead. Jim Hawkins, a curious boy, wanted to know what was in that treasure chest. So he slowly opened the chest. He looked in and he saw a few gold coins, not many, and he gave them to his mother for Billy Bones's keep. He also saw a piece of paper, but he realized it wasn't just any piece of paper. This was a treasure map. X marked the spot. Knowing that the pirates were going to be back at the inn at 6 o'clock that evening, Billy and his mother raced to Squire Trelawney's house. The squire was entertaining the doctor, Dr. Livesley, and when Jim gave the squire the treasure map, they decided they would become treasure hunters. And Jim would come with them as their cabin boy. They promised Jim's mother that they would look after him. Squire Trelawney quickly secured the services of a ship, a 3-masted schooner under the command of a Captain Smollett, and the ship's name was the Hispaniola. The ship's cook was a tall, one-legged man with a face as big as ham. And his name was Long John Silver, and on his shoulder he had a parrot by the name of Captain Flint, named after the most fearsome pirate of them all, a pirate so bad he wore out the plank. And Captain Flint would be fond of saying, "Pieces of eight, pieces of eight." Long John Silver hired the rest of the crew, and they were a motley bunch, with hooks for hands, eye patches, tattoos, and scars all over their faces. Captain Smollett, he was concerned, and he told Squire Trelawney that he didn't like the look of this crew. But Squire Trelawney, he was so excited. He had the treasure map. He dismissed Captain Smollett, and so the journey began. And it was fairly uneventful. Not much happened on the journey, and the weather was pretty good. Jim loved to talk to Long John Silver because he would tell wonderful stories of the sea. He taught Jim to navigate using the stars, and Long John Silver would make the most wonderful food out of very little ingredients. And on the eve of the day when they were to arrive at Treasure Island, Jim went to the apple barrel for an apple. All ships carried apple barrels or oranges or lemons or limes, anything with vitamin C to prevent that dreaded disease, that plague of the sailors, scurvy, which would result in bleeding gums, teeth falling out, skin bruising, tiredness, madness and death. Many a sailor and many a pirate had succumbed to scurvy. Because it was so long into the voyage, Jim had to reach right down into the apple barrel. In fact, he fell right in, and he was just scrambling his way out when he heard voices. It was the voice of Long John Silver and the motley crew that he had selected. Jim listened. They were talking about the treasure and how they were going to take it. It was supposed to be a secret mission, but Squire Trelawney was so excitable. Obviously they knew, and they were going to leave the captain, the squire, Jim, and the doctor on the island, maroon them there. Or, if they didn't cooperate, they'd be killed. Jim remained in the apple barrel until the pirates had gone. The voices had stopped and he could no longer hear their footsteps. He then scrambled out and raced to the cabin of Captain Smollett, who was talking to the doctor and the squire. And when Jim told them what he had heard, they decided to act quickly. They gathered food. They gathered weapons. They took the treasure map. And under the cover of darkness, they lowered one of the lifeboats. And they rowed to Treasure Island. As they pulled the little rowing boat up the shore, they realized that this was no tropical paradise. It was a dark, dismal, dank place. They pulled the rowing boat to a safe harbour, walked across the sand, through a few bushes and sand dunes, and into some trees. And as they were walking, they had a feeling that they were not alone. They could hear breathing and they could hear footsteps. There was someone or something on this island with them. The captain who had a lantern, shone the torch in the direction of the footsteps. Ah! They came face to face with a man who had piercing blue eyes, long, straggly hair. His nails were all long and dirty, and his clothes were torn. He had a huge, long, straggly beard, and he tried to say something. But it took a few attempts for him to actually open his mouth and talk. And then he told them his name was Ben Gunn. He had been marooned on the island 3 years before. These were the first people he had spoken to in all that time. Ben Gunn wanted nothing more than to go home. And he showed the doctor, the squire, the captain, a stockade that had been built by Captain Flint, somewhere they could be safe from the pirates. Well, the squire, the captain, and the doctor spent a restless night in that stockade. And the next morning, as they looked out on the Hispaniola, they saw the skull and crossbones. The pirate flag had been raised. The pirates, quickly realizing that the treasure map had gone, opened fire on the stockade. They climbed into the remaining boats and rowed to the island. A gun battle ensued. But because of the powerful defences of the stockade, the pirates had no success in overpowering the doctor and the squire and the captain. And so Long John Silver wrapped a white handkerchief around a stick and asked a parley to speak. He came to the stockade. He granted the captain, the squire, the doctor, and Jim that they would be safe if they gave him the treasure map. Squire Trelawney refused. And Jim, while all this was going on, had a plan. He sneaked out of the stockade. He ran to the little cove where the small rowing boat that they had arrived at the island in was safely pulled. He pushed the boat into the water and rowed to the Hispaniola. The 2 remaining pirates left on the Hispaniola were very drunk, and they were snoring their heads off, and they were easily overpowered by Jim Hawkins. He then steered the Hispaniola to a cove that Ben Gunn had shown him, where the Hispaniola could stay ready until the captain and the squire and the doctor had got the treasure and they could make a speedy escape. Jim went back to the stockade, expecting a hero's welcome. When he arrived, he found the pirates, Long John Silver. And Long John Silver had the map. Long John Silver told Jim that the squire, the doctor, they didn't care about him. They thought that he'd just left. Jim couldn't believe that the squire and the doctor would simply leave him for the pirates. He spent a restless night that night. The pirates wanted to kill him, but Long John Silver, fond of the lad, he protected him. And the next morning, Long John Silver took Jim and the rest of the pirates to find the treasure. They went out of the stockade. They went down Skeleton Lane, up Dead Man's Hill, and then down into the valley, Bone Valley, and they saw a row of trees. The third tree from the left had what looked like a witch's face carved upon it, and 20 paces from that tree to the north, X marked the spot. The pirates carefully measured the 20 paces, and then they dug, and they dug, and they dug, until eventually they hit the treasure chest. They opened the chest, looked inside. It was empty. There was nothing there. There was no treasure at all. The pirates were furious. And they all turned on each other. They were fighting each other. They were fighting Long John Silver. They were trying to attack Jim, and Long John Silver protected Jim. And just then, shots came through the forest. The squire, the doctor, and the captain stepped out of the trees. The pirates were left in the hole. Jim Hawkins went to the captain and the squire, as did Long John Silver, who protected him throughout. The rest of the pirates, well, they were fighting amongst themselves. They were all hung over. They were easily overpowered. The doctor left them some provisions, enough food for them. And they were marooned on that island. You see, Ben Gunn had dug up the treasure 3 years before and had put it in the cave where he lived. Ben Gunn agreed to share the treasure if he could get a safe passage back to Britain. And so the doctor, the squire, the captain, Long John Silver and Jim all carried the treasure, for there was lots and lots of treasure, onto the Hispaniola. And they set sail, leaving that dark, dank, dismal place behind. But it was a long journey back to Britain, and they needed to stop off for supplies. And they stopped off in South America. And it was there that Long John Silver, Captain Flint the parrot, and some, but not all, of the treasure disappeared. And Long John Silver was never seen or heard of again. The captain, the doctor, the squire, Jim and Ben Gunn safely arrived back in Britain, and they were all very, very wealthy. Ben Gunn was able to have a shave and a wash and wear smart new clothes. Jim was able to buy the Admiral Benbow, and he lived with his widowed mother, never wanting to have an adventure again. But he would often dream about that dark and dismal island, about the one-legged man with the face as big as a ham and the parrot on his shoulder, and about those pirates and what happened to them. For that, my friends, is the tale of treasure